Winner. Good evening. Hello, everyone. I warmly welcome you all tonight, and I would like to introduce the Mosaic LaunchPad, our latest development, as well as the business opportunities it offers, which are only available for a limited time. In fact, there are exactly 39 days left for anyone to make a decision and join our supporters. So, 2025. This opportunity expires at midnight on June 30th. 3.5 years ago, we dared to dream big, and we dared to imagine a world for ourselves, a decentralized world. We dove into the process and the planning as true crypto anarchists. Those who were with us from the very beginning might remember that we didn't even start with just one project, but actually with two. And even back then, we said that we have tons of ideas we want to bring to life in the future because we really didn't sign up for just one project, but rather to create this kind of world, this decentralized world, which aims to offer something truly unique for decentralized financial services. And also, to finally offer solutions to the problems present in the market and to reach the broad segment of society who are increasingly interested in the world of cryptocurrencies, crypto trading, and blockchain technology, but find it too complicated, don't really know how to navigate it, and even find the necessary tools for it too complex. So finally, in 2022, on November 22nd, we took the plunge, and now Mosaic Galaxy has been born, and our self-built decentralized world is now standing on multiple pillars. We are building our own little decentralized ecosystem, which is gradually being built up step by step as we move forward in time. Of course, the past 3.5 years haven't just been about development, since we've been invited to a ton of festivals and various conferences. Our owners have also given a lot of interviews in the media, as you can see here in the middle as well. Fortunately, these years have not passed without recognition and awards either, which we are, of course, very, very proud of, and our developers truly deserve them, especially Attila Vidakovity, who is our idea creator, and Peter Molnar, who is the lead developer of the Mosaic Galaxy projects. And well, the first thing we created was our Mosaic Alpha crypto trading platform, which is still not operating in its final form at the moment, since its purpose is to eventually run on our second and largest project, which is slowly nearing completion and will be its home in the future. And then a reborn Mosaic Alpha will be launched there. It will be called Mosaic Alpha 2.0. But even now, we can say that a crypto trading competition is already running on the Alpha platform. There are now 22 baskets, and you can really see it clearly, especially now on Bitcoin's birthday. You know, or more precisely, on what's called Pizza Day, that the Bitcoin price is hitting all-time highs, which of course is also reflected in the performance of the baskets. And the competitors themselves, as well as the other crypto basket managers, whom we call basket managers, are, of course, always busy managing their own portfolios. But the really big milestone in our lives, the one that's truly getting closer to us with each passing day, is the official launch of the Mosaic blockchain. At the moment, the final testing phase is underway on the DevNet, where our partners were already able to start connecting 2 weeks ago. At the moment, more than 300 validators are already operating, and this period is also about conducting stress tests. The more people join, the more we can test things that couldn't be tested without participants before, and we can fix any major bugs that come up. That way, when we officially launch as a Polkadot parachain, our approximately 2,400 validators and our tens of thousands of delegator NFT owners will be able to join the Mosaic blockchain without any issues. This will make it the first time in blockchain technology history that a network will truly launch in a genuinely decentralized way, not just in name, but in reality. By just launching, and the fact that the Mosaic blockchain goes live, does not mean success yet. Despite all the recognition we've received over the past 3.5 years, we still have to keep working in the background and prepare the processes that will help us make the Mosaic blockchain truly successful. And we want to make sure that the supporters who made it possible for us to get this far are satisfied, especially by seeing that the Mosaic blockchain's own so-called native coin, the Mosaic coin, also starts to steadily rise in value. But for this to happen, there's really only one thing we need: to fill the Mosaic blockchain with content and life, which, by the way, you can already find on our website, mozichain.io. You just need to click on the small blue button on the right, and the interface will open up. Even now, you could already see on the test at how our validators are operating. But the more projects join us, and the more successful these projects become. This means that, of course, transactions will require the Mosaic coin, which naturally leads to its value increasing as well. However, how can we make it so that projects join us, and not just any projects, but the best possible ones? After all, this is at least as important, if not the most important thing. We thought that we would take a big step in this and support this kind of joining period. In other words, we're trying to speed it up. And this is the Mosaic LaunchPad program, which I'd like to introduce to you tonight, and in which you have the opportunity to participate not only as a supporter, but also in a way that allows you to benefit financially from this support. But first, let's take a look at what the LaunchPad actually is. I've described it here for you as a comprehensive launch platform that not only helps you get started in the crypto market, but also helps you stand out, since there is currently a huge number of crypto assets listed on various crypto exchanges. And it's no coincidence that I said we're trying to build a system for those who are interested in this but feel uncertain, don't have the necessary knowledge, and are afraid of quickly losing their hard-earned capital. They can also navigate much more safely, because as I mentioned, you can also search using Mosaic LaunchPad. Of course, we are not and will not be the only launchpad in this industry. Right now, there are already successful, less successful, and exceptionally successful launchpads out there. However, once again, we have found an area where we can be unique, and at the moment, well, let me just knock on wood here, we are the only ones. We have no competitors. Since we will be operating as a Polkadot parachain, as the Mosaic blockchain. And yes, we fought hard all the way through this journey, with all the ups and downs of joining. So we have plenty of knowledge to help those projects that also want to enter and launch in this ecosystem, allowing us to shorten this process for them. Moreover, our LaunchPad can offer much more to the projects that join. Because you have to be careful, not just if you want to launch a crypto project, but also if, for example, you want to invest as an investor and buy into the cryptocurrency of a newly launched crypto project. But why? Let's admit, there are projects out there whose news never even reaches us, even though there are brilliant experts behind them. The idea is fantastic, but they simply lack the knowledge, the skills, the network of connections to secure real capital, to make it through the entire development process, to actually complete it, to have a marketing budget, and basically to kick down the door so the whole machine can get going and the price of their own coin can start to rise. But that's just one part of it. The other part is actually standing out among the millions of crypto assets and countless crypto projects. Well, that's not the easiest thing either. That's exactly why we chose a different path when we started out. We didn't turn to venture capital investors, but instead, we sought out those individuals, those people who saw the potential in our project. They liked what we outlined, what we wanted to achieve, and why, and they supported us on this path in exchange for benefits that, under normal market conditions, were non available and still aren't available now. That's exactly why we're approaching things differently. So it's important that if someone is starting out, they should have a professional image and their tokenomics should be audited. Without a targeted campaign, most projects fail, so it's not worth making that mistake. However, we help validate projects in front of the market so they can become credible from the very first moment. This means that projects applying to us have to go through a very rigorous screening process. So not just anyone can join the Mosaic LaunchPad project. Here, we will review the white paper, the tokenomics, of course there will be an advisory pitch deck, the smart contract if it already exists, the roadmap, naturally the ownership background, and I could go on and on. These are all things someone needs to have in place to get started here. It can also happen that a project launches on the Mosaic blockchain, or more precisely, on the Mosaic LaunchPad, which actually doesn't want to launch on the Mosaic blockchain later on. It's also possible that if this is a project where we see that the crypto community and blockchain technology has such a unique idea, one that this decentralized world truly needs, then we will definitely help them to make their project a success. After all, if it launches on this launchpad, then our supporters can also benefit from it. Of course, we will strive to ensure that only those projects are launched which will continue their journey on the Mosaic blockchain, just as I mentioned at the beginning. However, this is really good news. Despite the fact that so many projects are launched and more than 80% of them fail, those that launch on a launchpad have a much higher success rate. That rate is around 30 to 50%. But I looked at a relatively recent 2024 study about projects with a positive ROI that are running on launchpads, and you can see that on the different launchpads, for example, Binance is by far the biggest, with 94% of its projects in the positive. And let's be honest with ourselves. Although I know that life often makes us a bit greedy, and we might long for that 94%, I don't think anyone around the table would chase anyone away if they could operate with a 40% success rate. And those projects in which he can take part end up being successful 40% of the time. So that's exactly why, as I mentioned, with us you have to go through a very strict filtering system, since right now there are more than 17,000 active cryptocurrencies, and actually, if you count all the tokens ever created, including inactive and experimental projects, the number exceeds 37 million, and on average, 2 to 5 new assets appear on the market every day. But what's even more important is that in 2024, 59% of the new tokens launched were created with the intention of fraud. And if you look at the text below, you can see that when the bull market happened in 2021 and projects were launched, by early 2024, 72% of them had already shut down or become inactive. So that's why I said that for those who are interested in this industry and want to somehow win in this market, because of course, the stories about crypto millionaires and billionaires, how quickly they made their fortunes or how much profit they gained, sound tempting to everyone. But exactly because of what you can see here, it's extremely difficult to filter out which ones are scams and which ones aren't. That's exactly why there is this very, very strict filtering system, which is actually a positive thing for the projects themselves, since it makes it much easier for them to find supporters or investors. And for the supporters or investors, it's also really good news and valuable information because they can trust these projects with a much higher degree of confidence. We can't guarantee that, no matter how strict the screening is, something might not slip through that doesn't have entirely positive intentions, or that a project will definitely be successful, because in this industry, there are so many components to success. And over these 3.5 years, I've also learned that you can't set a deadline for development because, as our developers often say, you never know if it will take 2 minutes, 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, or God forbid, even 2 years to fix a particular bug and find the solution. Especially in a case like ours, for example, where we're developing something in a field that no one has ever done before us. So we can't go to anyone for help. But that's exactly why the Mosaic Launchpad is great, because those projects can come to us for help, since we've already been down this road. But what do we actually offer? First of all, we conduct a thorough due diligence, and we give projects access to an existing supportive community. Because by supporting the creation of the Mosaic Launchpad, you don't just get a share in the new projects, but you can also decide whether to take part in supporting them for even more additional benefits. Of course, we offer a knowledge base for them, as well as for those who are interested in these projects. And of course, we also provide marketing support, since we reach out to our own community, which already has more than 22,000 partners. And if our validators approve it on the Mosaic blockchain, then we ourselves can also finance the best projects from the treasury of the Mosaic blockchain. This way, at least the opportunity is there to get in early, to join right at the beginning at the best possible price for a project that, as we'd like to say, has that X factor. Because, and I didn't just come up with this myself, I actually looked up a source for it here as well. On average, successful Launchpad projects can generate returns of 10 times, or even up to 1,000 times, for those who are able to get in right at the very beginning. And we always say, oh, sure, I would have been there at the very start if someone had told me back then to support the development of the mobile phone network. But who would have thought back then, when everyone was still calling them bricks, what would come of it after a few decades? But our packages help you get behind projects like these. We actually have supporter packages, 7 of them to be exact. These have been available since April 21st, and as you can see here on the chart, and as I mentioned earlier, you can purchase these supporter packages until midnight on June 30th. There's also something called a Patreon NFT, which I'll definitely talk about as well. The most important thing here is that there's only a very short window of time available, so it's worth considering the possibilities of this project and what it could mean for you. I know it's a cliche word. I just wanted to say it suddenly. Passive income. Excuse me. Because, you hear this everywhere, and everyone is striving to earn income basically without working. In this case, with the LaunchPad, you can actually do just that. In addition, you also have the opportunity to make extra decisions in the future, and by doing so, you can further increase your income. So let's see what this looks like. As I mentioned, we have 7 LaunchPad packages worth 100, 250, 750, 1,500, 5,000, 10,000, and $25,000. More precisely, we always calculate in so-called stable coins, meaning USDT or USDC, but these can be purchased at almost exactly the same exchange rate. First of all, the Mosaic LaunchPad itself will have its own native token. The packages, as you can see in the top row, include these tokens. You can see that here is the 100,000, then 2,005, 8,000, 17,000, 60,000, 100, and 20,000, and finally the largest package, the 25,000, which is not by chance 300,000 pieces. But alongside this, there are daily distributions, which are the numbers after the slash: 10, 25, 80, 170, 600, 1,200, and 3,000 tokens. That's why it's important to carefully consider the opportunity and your own possibilities. But it really matters when you make your decision, because with each passing day, you can collect fewer tokens. If you join now, you'll already receive today's token amount, then tomorrow's, the next day's, and so on. This way, you can fully maximize your token collecting opportunities, since we'll be distributing tokens daily like this until the very last day of September at midnight. After that, it will no longer be possible to get Mosaic LaunchPad tokens this way, so those who need them, like the new projects starting out, will only be able to buy them from people who already have them. In addition, in the next row, you can see something called Pool 1 and Pool 2. Here you can see that the smallest packages don't include this option, but with the 250 package, Pool 1 is already available, and from the 750 package and up, you can get a share from every pool, and you can also see that the proportions are different. These numbers indicate the amount of shares you get. Here you can see that in Pool 1, it ranges from 1 to 200, and in Pool 2, it's also from 1 to 200, except that the third one is left out there. So let's take a look at what exactly this pool is, because this is actually the LaunchPad. There will be 2 types of projects on our LaunchPad. One of them, the one marked in blue, is for our own projects, meaning the new projects of Mosaic Galaxy will be launched there. The other one, the orange one, is for external projects. So those are the ones we'd also like to see operate on the Mosaic blockchain afterwards, and of course, help the price go higher and higher. As you can see here, the 2 pools have different token distributions. And that's not a coincidence. For both Mosaic's own projects and external projects, what's the same is the 60%. This is the amount of tokens that we distribute among the supporters. As you saw earlier, the distribution is based on the share each package received, and then there's the 25% that goes towards company operations, and 15% that goes into the marketing budget. You could also see that for the orange one, this 15% is split into 3 parts. This is something that will be very important later on with the so-called Patreon NFTs, but I'll come back to that. But now, let's take a look at what advantages we have by holding these shares. On one hand, these projects always offer a certain amount of tokens, which we then distribute among the partners in proportion to their shares. However, Every new project eventually reaches a point, though this depends on the project, when they start the so-called pre-sale process of their own native coin or token, sometimes in several stages. But if you have at least a 1,500 package, you can already take part in this. So it's not just what the company offers and distributes. You can benefit from a new project not only through that, but also, based on the information we provide you, you can make a decision like, wow, this could be a really serious project. I want to buy more of this project's token or coin myself. If you already have a 1,500 package, then you can buy from this. However, if you have a 5,000, a 10,000, or a 25,000 package, then as you can see, you can buy it with a 10, 15, or 20% discount, and on top of that, at the best possible rate. Because these pre-purchase processes, as I mentioned, build on each other. So, for example, it might start at 25 cents, then go to 50, 75, and then $1. So it's possible that when it opens up to the market, it will be $1. It's also possible that it opens up earlier, but what's certain is that when you're able to buy, not only do you get the best discount, but as you saw earlier, you also get the discounts that come with those packages. So you can buy those tokens at an even better price. But it's very important to note that here, the so-called SW value of the package always matters. If you're here with us, the person who invited you to this presentation will explain exactly what this means. So you should always take that value into account, and you can make purchases during the pre-sale promotion of the given project in proportion to that value. But let's look at an example to see what this actually looks like. Here you can see Polygon, which launched on Binance LaunchPad, and as you can see, it achieved a result of over 1,110%. It's important to mention here that, typically, people aren't this patient. So, for example, if you get it at a price of 10 cents, someone might say at 20 cents, "Oh, I've already doubled my money. Thank you very much. That was enough for me." Some people wait longer and hold out for a tenfold return. Some wait for 100-fold. But there are very few people who are truly patient, who take the effort to understand the information, and who believe in the project enough to stick with it and actually achieve such a result. But let's see, for example, if this project had launched on our Mosaic LaunchPad, what would it have looked like from your perspective if you had one of these supporter packages? All right, let's take a look. So here, in this case with Polygon, you can see that they had 10,400,000,000 of their own cryptocurrency. Out of this, 10 million is what they would have offered on our platform, for example. Here you can see that since 60% is distributed, that's 6 million units, and we can't say exactly because only after June 30th, when the joining process ends, will we be able to tell how many shares in total have been collected. The different packages, of course, contain different share ratios, so the total will only be clear after June 30th, but we're estimating plus or minus 20,000 units. So if we divide the 6 million by 20,000, that means each share gets 300 tokens. As you could see, in some cases there was one share, in others there were 3, 7, or even 200, so there were different amounts like that. And if we multiply this by the highest exchange rate, you can see that if you had an elite package, this is the 5,000 package here, which included 30 shares. If you multiply the 30 by the 300 and by the exchange rate, that means you would have earned $26,280. If you already have the next higher, the 10,000 package, then that's $65,700, And if you have the most premium package, the 25,000 one, then it's $175,200. Well, I think all of us would be really happy if we were the owners of that. You can also see down there at the bottom a separate NFT patron share. I'll get back to that in just a moment. So this is just an example. Of course, we can't guarantee it will be exactly like this, but as you could see, I showed you that these projects launching on the LaunchPad really do have a much higher chance of being successful. Now let's jump ahead a bit and take a look at what exactly a patron NFT is. A patron NFT basically represents a share, because you can decide that you don't want to deal with a patron NFT, but at the same time, you see the opportunity in starting out with one of the larger packages. And here you can see that the 10,000 package includes 3 of them, while the other one has 11. So this means you have either 15 or 55 shares, depending on the package. If you decide, you can literally convert this into a share in one of the pools. You can allocate these in groups of 5 to the different pools. So you can't just put one in the first pool and, say, for in the second, you have to allocate them in groups of 5, and you can't move them around however you want afterward. So you need to decide where you want to place them. But what is the point of this patron NFT, which, as you can see, can only be purchased starting from the 5,000 package? And you can also see that some packages include it. So let's take a look at what this is really all about. You also have the opportunity, for example, if you know someone who is working on exactly this kind of project or wants to start one. If you reach out to them and bring them to Mosaic, and they get started, pass through the screening process, and the project launches on the Mosaic LaunchPad. Then, as you can see here from the distribution, you will receive, in addition to the share included in your own package, if you have a patron NFT, you will get an extra 5%. In fact, there's another 5% there because, let's say you don't have such a connection, but you have a friend who does, and if you give them a patron NFT or sell them the patron NFT for $1,000, then they will also get 5%, and you will also get 5%. So this way you both can gain additional shares. But as I mentioned, if you're not interested in this, or you think you don't have any chance of bringing in such a project, then you can convert your share into one of the pools instead. What's very important is that these patron NFTs can only be purchased until midnight on June 30th, so you definitely need to make your decision by then. Now, let's take a look at what else can be found in the LaunchPads, or more precisely, in the LaunchPad packages. Here, a bit further down, you can also see something called LP. This stands for Liquidity Pool, and for every package, it represents 20%. Because from the very first moment, we strive to do this, unlike in our previous projects, where this wasn't the case, and we only made it available later, so that we start building the liquidity of the Mosaic LaunchPad token right from the beginning. And this package, as you can see here, 20% of the value goes into this liquidity pool, and this is split into 2 parts of 10% each. This works so that 10% goes to the Mosaic LaunchPad token itself, and the other 10% goes into what's called a stable coin, so either USDT or USDC. This amount is staked, meaning locked up, for 2 years, but after that, you get it back. Of course, this is influenced by the sales volume and the exchange rate at that time. But even so, you can more or less count on getting this amount back after about 2 years. The exact tokenomics of the Mosaic LaunchPad and the Mosaic LaunchPad token haven't been finalized yet. Didak Ivik Zatila and Peter Molnar said that they are working on this, so they can define it as precisely as possible as soon as they can, since there are a lot of factors involved. For example, I mentioned that the distribution will end on September 30th, but it's also possible that the tokenomics will include, for example, the ability for you to stake, and that way you can gain access to new ones. Or if you lock up a certain amount for staking, you might be able to buy new ones, or participate in a project, or purchase a higher amount of native coins. So there are a lot of things like this that could be added as well, which, of course, are the next steps for the future, and it won't be long before we make all of this public as soon as it's ready. So please think about why it's such a great opportunity to take part as a supporter in the creation of the Mosaic LaunchPad. Our development team is currently working on completing the Mosaic blockchain and developing Mosaic Alpha 2.0. So we will have a new team dedicated specifically to developing this, so it can be completed as soon as possible. This is important because when the blockchain launches, there should already be projects that have gone through the vetting process. In fact, you don't even need the blockchain itself to vet these projects, to sign the contracts, and to establish in the contract the amount of tokens they are offering, which will be distributed at 60%. Also, for those who brought them in with a patron NFT, that 5 or 5 plus 5% will also be distributed accordingly. So these processes could already get started right away. But if you're someone who's watching this video from a project perspective, meaning you'd like to bring a project here, then it's very important that when you start out on a platform like this, your goal shouldn't just be to have a successful cryptocurrency, but rather to build a huge community. You can do this simply because we already have such a large and supportive community, and you'll be able to reach out to them as well. And if the offer you make to them in the future is appealing, then they'll be able to support you even more on your path to success. So if you get started, you could become one of the big success stories of the future. But if you're here tonight as a supporter of the Mosaic LaunchPad, then it's also great for you to join in, so you too can be part of that big story. And as you've seen, you won't just be part of one story here, but you'll get to choose from those projects that have been filtered and are likely to succeed. If you look at a success like the one I just showed you earlier, for example, a 1,100% success, let's say someone holds on and waits it out, then I think that even a single successful project can bring results, as you saw from the example, that would already put us in a pretty good position, in my opinion. So I don't really think we'd be arguing about wanting to achieve even more than that. But included in this, as I mentioned earlier tonight, is the X factor, that there could be a bunch of projects that turn out to be successful, that really stand out, that bring innovations to the market where the idea meets a current problem or interest in the market. For example, like when the metaverse or gaming entered this industry, there were several projects that were truly outstanding and successful. So in this world, and with launchpads as well, the market movements themselves and what's happening globally are, of course, also extremely volatile and constantly changing. But as I said, one thing is certain. The projects that are being developed for the Mosaic blockchain go through a very strict screening process, so you have a much better chance of finding a project that can actually become successful. So we give them every opportunity. Of course, we can't develop it for them, but they definitely get the chance, and you also have the opportunity to be among the early participants and get in at the best price, not just through the shares included in the package, but also through the pre-sale. If you have at least a 1,500 package, you can already take part in that as well. So, I wish you a good decision for tonight, and I have some really great news for those who have been with us for a while, those who purchased any supporter package before midnight on March 31st, because for them, just the same, we have a 20% discount until midnight on Monday, June 30th. So this means that they can buy the packages at a 20% discount. I think this is a really great opportunity, but don't forget, this is a limited time offer. You still have 39 days to make your decision, but also remember that every single day, the Mosaic LaunchPad token is being distributed. So the later you decide, the later you'll be able to start collecting these tokens. So I wish you all very good luck, because before we wrap up, I have one more surprise for you. Those who not only participate as supporters in the process of creating the Mosaic Launchpad, but also help share this information with others, can not only earn commissions from sales, but can also earn these packages through their work. And we already have quite a few partners who have earned even the largest package through their work, and there are even some who have earned all three, because you can earn one of each package through work. So a total of 3 packages can be obtained this way. And if you remember that, for example, a 100 package contained very few things, then why is it worth buying a 100 package? This diagram right here is exactly what shows you why. If you're interested, if you see the opportunity in it, then with a $100 package, you've gained the right to work your way up to even a $5,000, $10,000, or even a $25,000 package, which can provide you with the most benefits. The person who invited you can explain the terms and conditions of this to you just as well. Here you can see these volumes, but I know these need a bit more explanation, so I'll leave that tonight to those who invited you. So I want to thank you very much for being here, and may getting in on an early token sale no longer be just a dream, so that you can be there from the very first moment and have the best possible chance to choose a project and its token that has been audited by knowledgeable professionals. And on the other hand, if you're a project, then your launch is programmed for success because we help, we audit, and we point out any shortcomings. It's possible that we won't accept your application to join in the first round, but if you make up for these shortcomings, then you can get into the program afterwards. And this way, you can really start out in a way that people will take you seriously right away. And don't forget that we have a support community that keeps a close eye on what your project offers, what advantages it brings, and what you want to solve in this industry. Then, they decide whether they'll continue to support you or not. So don't just have a crypto project, build a community as well. So please share this information because it's worth it. And on top of that, we offer you extra benefits. So thank you very much for being here tonight. I hope I was able to convey why the Mosaic Launchpad is such a really great thing. How it connects to the life of the Mosaic Galaxy ecosystem, and how it strengthens our Mosaic blockchain and the value of the Mosaic coin. And that you can gain not only passive protection through validation, but also through the Launchpad, as well as access to further opportunities. So I wish you a very good decision. Don't forget, the clock is ticking. There are only 39 days left. Make a good decision and think it through carefully. Hello, good night to everyone.